Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of To the Moon, Allison, where we're talking about the top and trending books, novels, all sorts of stories in fantasy, science fiction, speculative fiction, and romance. I'm your host, Allison Martine Hubbard, author of the Bourbon books and works of speculative fiction. It is a treat for me to be talking to Chandra Blumberg today. Hello, Chandra.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Chandra. You are here to tell us about this amazing book, Digging Up Love. And I just have to show the cover because, get a load of that. I don't know if I've seen such a cute and fun cover where my 6-year-old thought the book was for him because it's got dinosaurs and cake. So I know that this is not a book for 6-year-olds, but could you tell us a little bit about Digging Up Love?
Digging Up Love is my debut novel, and it's a contemporary romance about a small town baker who falls for a paleontologist from Chicago. So there is a dinosaur bone that is discovered when her grandparents are digging for a swimming pool in the backyard of the home that she shares with them. And the paleontologist comes out to investigate it and see what's going on. And
of course, she's hot.
Yes, definitely. He's a very good-looking paleontologist, and he's not what she expects. She expected someone sort of older, kind of rough around the edges, and she's like, "Oh wow, this sort of hunky guy is to look in my backyard." But also, she's not sure about this because she has a dream of actually moving from her small town to the city to open up her own bakery. And so she's thinking this could be a big complication to her plan. So she's not sure about the idea of a dinosaur dig in her own backyard.
Well, it definitely threw, instead of a monkey wrench in the plans, it threw a whole dinosaur bone in the plans. Okay, so much for me going and doing my thing. Now there's paleontologists digging up my parents' or grandparents' backyard. And yeah. So I really, one of the reasons I say this was a treat is I have known you on Instagram since before you were even querying this book. And for it to come from you're querying this book to getting signed with an agent and then getting it published, and now it's in my hot little hands. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey? Because I feel like your journey is what most people wish getting published was like, as far as your path seemed really fast. Did it feel fast to you?
Well, I would say for this book, yes. But sort of this is a dream that I've had since childhood. I've always sort of wanted to become an author. And along the way, I kind of bought into the idea that getting published is it's like winning the lottery or, putting your book out there. And of course, when I was younger, there was not really self-publishing was not a thing. So I didn't know about that avenue. But then even as I got older, I thought, put it on the back burner. But it sort of was always there at the back of my mind. And so I actually originally started with trying to get a nonfiction manuscript published. And that's where I sort of was getting involved on Twitter. It was about motherhood, humor and everything. But I was finding that I didn't have the platform for that. Yeah. And fiction has always had my heart. The first manuscript that I wrote was a romance. That one is forever shelved.
Forever? Okay, tell us about that one and why can't it come back? Maybe we could just tweak it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
No.
it was a learning experience. It was very rough.
You're like, no, it's not coming back.
It's got a beginning, middle, and end, and a love plot. I can say that for it. But that's what I've always loved to read, romance, and every genre I read, if there's a love plot in it, that's got my interest. I'm like, will these people end up? Will the murder get solved? Yeah, that's exciting. But also, are they gonna?
I love it. You're like, that's nice. There's a dead body, but he's cute. Can you tell me what's happening between these two here? Because that's what I'm tuning in for, and that's really true. Because I know so many people who are like, romances, but that's the story that they're following and whatever else they're doing. So for anybody who's slagging romance, including people who are like, wait a second, I thought To the Moon, Allison was about science fiction, and it is, but the human element is always so important. And what are people but, monkeys who fall in love with each other sometimes, and it's fun to watch.
Yes. And I love science fiction too. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book with a paleontologist love interest was from Jurassic Park.
The Jurassic Park references were huge through here, and I loved it. And some of my fellow writer friends, we were talking about the new Jurassic Park movies. So I'm going to need to ask, like, do you do the posing with your kids of the 3 like mini raptors?
Oh my goodness, I totally should. I totally should.
You should.
They wouldn't get that because they haven't seen them yet. They're too little, but
no,
I could totally.
too.
Yes, I'm so excited to show them when they're ready because I love especially the newest. Yeah, no, not the second to newest one with the Velociraptor training and everything. That one was it just blew me away.
I think everybody decided the most recent one was one we can just pretend doesn't exist. Going back to the one where then the giant hamster balls, that one was more like, oh look, she's running in heels. That's amazing. And then
it had all the nods to the original, which was really fun.
Yes, so with the T-shirt, the vintage T-shirt. Yes, he's one of us. He's a fanboy too. We like him.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh, and Joanne Paulson says, romance, love, passion, all appropriate in every book. Well, 90%. Yeah, she's probably right. I mean, Joanne,
maybe not all.
We can't put them in some of like the little kids' books. I mean, it doesn't belong in any of the Elephant and Piggy or you know, Night little Pookie books. That would just confuse the little ones. But most books, if we can get that romance element in there. And Joanne knows because Joanne writes murder mysteries and has romance in there. So she's like, bring it on. And she's like back to the dead bodies going, yes, that is interesting about the dead bodies. And then there's romance. So she's an expert in that. Are you going to be writing some science fiction for us, Chandra?
I don't know. I mean, you never know. I feel like I would need to do so much research, but I do love doing research. That was a really fun part of this project. I was able to interview actual paleontologists, which was super awesome to just hear about their job and what they do. So yeah, I guess you never say never, right?
You're like, it's an excuse for me to talk to the nerds in every area of interest. So that's perfect.
Exactly.
And I did love that you had that in your acknowledgments because your book reads so smoothly that you aren't getting bogged down in little scientific details. But one of the really fun plot points in this is that they're finding a dinosaur bone in a place they've never found dinosaur bones before. And when I read that, I went, is that true? And then I go, I know really nothing about dinosaurs beyond, say, the Jurassic Park movies. So it's not like I know all about, yes, we would never find a dinosaur such as this in this area, but you clearly looked into all that.
Yes, I didn't. So in drafting it, I really wanted to have it set in Illinois and in Chicago, but then I discovered there was no dinosaurs. So I didn't know that either.
There are now.
Yeah, we've got like the Field Museum, of course, with Sue the T-Rex, and now Maximo the Titanosaur. So we've got all these dinosaurs, but yes, there is the glaciers moved through and sort of just obliterated all of the rocks. So we don't have any of the fossils left over from the dinosaur age, but there are ice age fossils like mammoths. But so I had to do some digging and figure out a way to make it work.
Digging it up with love. Now, did you do a lot of research on the baking end, or did you already know all that just from being an expert baker in your own life for your own children?
Definitely didn't know all of that, but I was more comfortable with it. So I did research that. I didn't talk to any professional bakers, but I did a lot of research on sort of what it would mean to start a business, what a home-based business might look like. And then I read a ton of recipes, which I do anyway in my spare time. So, and I read a lot of cooking blogs. And of course, I love all of the cooking competitions on TV. So I drew a lot from that for the book.
Yeah, there was definitely a very fun kind of Great British Bake Off vibe going on there when they're talking about the different kinds of cookies and some of the odd pairings. Like one of the running jokes that I just loved is she wants to make like a sourdough cookie. And the love interest, Quentin, is just like, what are you doing? And then he puts like sour cream and she's like, just try it, okay? Rather than him go, okay, all right.
Yeah, there was a lot of banter with that. And the sourdough actually came about because I actually drafted the book during the first pandemic shutdown in March. And, everyone was baking sourdough. So, and I looked at, there are actually sourdough cookies in it. I also haven't tried to even bake sourdough myself. I didn't get there in the pandemic, I think, because I have the kids running around. Yeah. So I never got to the point of baking sourdough, but I was always watching everyone else's posts, where they were making sourdough. So I felt like it had to be in the book somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like there was that stage in the pandemic where it was sourdough and banana bread everywhere you looked. And then we all just kind of gave up and said, this is never ending. I'm not baking anymore. And we just put on our elastic pants and stopped really worrying about doing anything with our hair. And now we're back to like, okay, all right, okay, we're being seen by humans again. So we have to be presentable and be able to get out there. And one of the images, as far as being seen, that I just loved in your book was the body image and the body image of your main character, Alicia. And I just thought that was amazing because, first off, she is a power lifter. And I have never read a romance before where your main character is still a feminine, beautiful, gorgeous, but she will be able to lift you and bench you.
Yeah.
Power lifter. Where did you get that? Are you a power lifter, Chandra? Are you going to like lift?
I am not. I'm not a power lifter, but I have been weightlifting for, I want to say like, I don't know, since college. I'll say that because I am bad, bad with counting. But it's been a huge part of my life, and I've tried a lot of different disciplines. And so, no, I've never competed in powerlifting, but I love to lift big weights. And so I follow a lot of these weightlifters and powerlifters on social media. I've done different training programs. So, and, I have gotten muscles from lifting, and I see the stigma that people have. A lot of times people will say, I don't want to get big, or, women shouldn't be a certain size. And so I don't subscribe to that. I think that women can be whatever size they want to be. And if they want to lift big weights, then they should be able to lift big weights and not worry about, what it does to their body one way or the other. And so that was really important to me. And you see Alicia she's still coming to terms with that. And she's had some negative experiences, but she decides to own it. She's like, you know what, these muscles, I train hard for them. And yeah, I'm proud of my body. And Quentin, he loves her body. He has, zero issues. So for him, he has to kind of realize he might not be seeing it from her perspective, what she's gone through, but to him, it's a non-issue.
Well, and I loved it, not just because she embraces it, and there's even a line about somebody who had an issue with it, and she's like, I chose the weights over you because the weights are me and making me strong. But you're completely correct that there is that stigma of like, oh, well, women shouldn't look this way or that way. And women are beautiful and sexy in all sorts of body types. Yeah. And why would you ever be like, oh, no, you shouldn't work on getting stronger and building your muscle mass? That to me is just kind of an insane thought, but I know it's kind of common. And like, I adore this cover, but my only complaint is I wanted to see some like muscle definition in her delts and in her.
Well, she's got some. If you see, she's got biceps. So
she's got little biceps.
She's got some shoulders,
like thigh muscles, and be like, yeah, show us those muscles there, because she's a little less bulky than I pictured her in my head, because I pictured her as like really having some beautiful thighs and going, yeah, she's strong.
Yes, definitely. And I just love that we're seeing that more and more in romance, a diversity of all body types, because like I said, however you want to be, I mean, if you don't want big muscles, that's great. If you do, that's great. So I just loved that I was able to add to the narrative and just show just something that maybe people might not have thought about before or seen. And just because I feel like it's just so important to have that representation.
I just had occasional concerns from her, just because you also painted her as just a little bit of a klutz, falling sometimes. And I was worried these two things were going to combine at some point, and she was going to end up with a barbell or like one of the weight plates just on her foot. And next thing you know, she's in the hospital. Didn't happen, but I was a little concerned for her.
No, I feel like she has the focus when she's lifting, where she's such a professional about she's done this. And I don't see her having kitchen accidents either. I feel like it's more when she's letting her mind wander.
She's around him.
Yes, exactly. So it's probably a good thing he wasn't around her lifting.
And when he's in the kitchen with her, he's there and he's helping her, which was very sweet, as opposed to just her, I don't know, tripping over her KitchenAid, because that would go badly too. Like, I'm imagining getting like the apron strings tied in it, and usually she had her hair tied back if she had her braids tied up, so she wouldn't get them like in the KitchenAid. That's something I would probably do. I don't know if you saw. You saw the pictures of my cake fail.
It looked delicious.
It was still delicious. I would have a piece here, except we ate it all. But I was having some handstand mixer issues. I'm glad I didn't get my hair in it, but I was a little worried about Alicia there going.
Yeah. I feel like she have to have it back because of like health code, right?
Have
something. Yeah.
She would, but if she's in her own kitchen, is there a health code in her own kitchen?
That's true, but I'm sure she cares about it. Right? Professional. She doesn't want anyone finding it here and there.
Exactly.
That would not be ideal.
Well, and these were two professionals who also had some big family issues. And I love how you drew that in, because so often it's almost like in YA and in some romances, these people come like they're hatched and they have no family or strings. But that was a huge part of the book. What made you decide you wanted to make that such a big part of the plot?
Well, I think just family is important to me. I love reading I love reading all sorts of romances, but the ones where, they have these great family ties, like he has a brother in the book and sort of the banter that they have, and she has a sister. I feel like that just enriches the story. And also, I just wanted to show that people, regardless of what's happened in their life, can have this happily ever after. So their lives haven't been perfect, but they still get their happily ever after.
Well, yes, it's a romance. Otherwise, people would start and
no, definitely the happily after. Guaranteed.
You cannot get the HEA fans, the happily ever after fans up. They will be like, okay, that's a book with a romance line or a love story. It is not a romance, because that isn't a rule I made. I just have to follow it, or they come after me with like the pitchforks and the tiki torches.
Well, we want to know going into it, right, that no matter the ups and downs and what's going on, that we can assure that the last page, we're going to get that satisfaction.
Yes. Well, and I love that, because there was a point where, and it always happens in these books, where they're apart. Something's going on. Something's going wrong. Are they going to have their happily ever after? And you're just like, turn the page faster, because you can't be in that place of that anxiety, because you're like, I know they're going to get together, but how is it going to work out? And I love how you handled that part. It just kind of brought us over there, and then I'm going, I'll just eat my cookies while I do that. This is a store-bought, or it's a Girl Scout cookie. This is not nearly as pretty as the cookies that Allie would make in here, but
I feel like whatever works, it's sweet. That's what's important.
This one's lemon. I'm a big sucker for lemon, so
that's perfect.
I don't know if she'd be making lemon cookies, but I'm eating the lemon cookies because they're good.
For sure. Yeah.
So are you working on something with these same extended characters? Because I noticed this is part of A Taste of Love.
Yes, it's a 2-book series.
Very nice.
Yeah, the second book is Stirring Up Love, and it's about her younger sister Simone, and it's actually coming out at the end of July of this
year. That's a fast release.
Yes. So I'm excited. It's already available for pre-order, and you can add it on Goodreads. And it is a rivals to lovers. Ooh. So it's got a sort of a different feel than this book, because Simone's got, she's got a little bit of her spunky personality.
I was going to say, she's a little sassier just from what we get. I mean, Simone's not a main character in this, so we didn't get to know her that well. So that's awesome that we get to see what she's doing. But I'd say, she's a little spunkier. That's a soft way of putting it.
Yeah, she doesn't filter herself much. And so I had a fun I feel like there's a lot of banter in Digging Up Love, but even more so in Stirring Up Love, I really leaned into that with the enemies to lovers.
Now, would you call this a rom-com? Because we've had these discussions about what is a rom-com, what defines a rom-com. And so often when you say rom-com, people go to the movies, like that's what they think of. And I feel like there's a different standard between what a rom-com is for a book versus what it is when we're talking about something like There's Something About Mary, which I don't think that qualifies as a rom-com either. But the movies, like, they're not quite the same. What do you think?
Well, so that's hard, because I feel like everyone does have their own sort of standard on what makes a rom-com. I think there's a certain level of lightheartedness that has to go into it. To me, I don't know. I don't like to necessarily make the generalization, because sometimes, like I said, people have their own impressions of it, but to me, it's how the subject matter is handled. So to me, I think it can still be a rom-com if it has heavy elements, as long as those elements are handled in a way that sort of laces through the humor, which I feel like it does. And so I would consider it a rom-com. Some people think that rom-coms are sort of all lighthearted, no heavier elements. But I think as long as things are handled with humor, and there's sort of humor on the page, there's humor in the chapters, then I would say yes. Because there is some romance that sort of doesn't have that. It's just more mostly dramatic. With just a little bit of humor. And so that I would consider, maybe less so.
Yeah, and it's hard because humor is so subjective that it's really hard, because I've heard books described as, this one's laugh out loud funny, and then I read it and all the humor falls flat for me, and it clearly hit for somebody else, but just not me, because everybody's got kind of a different level. And there's definitely a lot of humor in this, but I didn't know if you necessarily were like, but I'm trying to make it a rom-com, or whether that was just like, well, everything I write has some humor in it. I know for me, when I write, I am physically incapable of not putting humor in there, which is why I'm not allowed to write things like murder mysteries, because people will be like, someone's dead, Allison, could you please be more serious? Like,
but even those have it. There's
I've read some very funny ones, but sometimes it's like, this is in poor taste. I'm like, yeah, it is. I'll stop.
Yeah. So I think there's just different levels. I mean, so like I said, I would consider it a rom-com, but everyone sort of has their own rating. I feel like obviously if it doesn't have any humor, then that's obvious, right?
Well, and there's
it's
some
not
where
a
it's just
rom-com,
like
but
it's all heavy, and
mhm,
maybe some people say something that can be kind of funny, but that's not, kind of like you said, it's not laced throughout the whole book, and
yeah,
it doesn't bring that lightness that kind of gives you that fun feeling. But it's also hard because you're going for romance. So much of romance is really all about those feels. How
yeah.
did you go about trying to make sure you got the feels from your heart into the page?
Well, I feel like, and this might make me sound weird, but if it gets me to cry
Oh,
or laugh, then I'm like, okay, it worked. Because there's definitely some moments when, even as I was writing them, I was really in the feels, and so for me, that's a good measure. And if I'm not feeling it, then I'm like, maybe I need to reevaluate this scene or the connections. So it sort of has to hit me, and then I'm like, okay, I did my job. But yeah, that's the main thing, and also just tying everything back to, I start with characters. I sort of, I guess I would say I'm a plantster. Like I
yes.
plot a little bit, yeah. But a lot of my plotting is to do with the characters. I really do a deep dive into what they need, what they want, what they might have gone through in their past, and then sort of fit the story around them. So I really want to make sure that everything ties back to them, and I feel like that brings in the emotion.
Yeah, it's almost like you're doing a character analysis and then figuring out the story that works for those characters to get them on that emotional journey. And I read plenty of books that have a lot of plot but no real character development. And I feel like for romances, you're so right. You need to have that character at the first forefront, and then let the story kind of form around it. But I love that you said you're a planter, because for people who are like, what the heck is a planter? She plants things? Like, no, she's not growing dinosaurs, people. No, it's the whole combination of, are you a plotter or are you a pantser? And I like to say personally, I'm a flashlight discovery writer, because that
Okay.
sounds way better than I'm a pantser, which is really what I am. But being able to kind of just go a little bit and a little bit. But
Mhm.
just like you, I start with the characters, but I don't necessarily go and know where the characters need to go. It's more kind of just each little bit crawling forward with my little flashlight going, what happens here? I don't know. You're way more organized. So you've earned the plant part for that
Well, I feel
play.
like each way is valid. It's just sort of a different process, right? And also, I mean, the plot is really important too. I just feel like you, it's more organic for me in terms of, I don't necessarily say, here's what this scene is going to do. I sort of write it, and I'm like, okay, did that do what it needed to do, or do we need to, then go ahead and,
Hmm.
because
Changing.
for me, writing is rewriting is sort of
Uh,
the adage that I subscribe to. I'll get a messy draft, and then I can really look at it and be like, okay, here's where this story needs.
do your betas get your messy draft?
Um, so
You're like, so
pieces
about that.
pieces of it. It depends on if I think it's ready. They get a messy draft, but not necessarily
Messy
the
draft.
first draft. Yes.
They get a messy draft, but they don't get the messiest of
I
the
feel
messy
like, yeah,
drafts.
I feel like I need to be comfortable with the story first.
Do you edit as you go, or do you kind of get it all out there and then go back and start revising?
I feel like it's impossible for me not to. I know that they say not to. I mean, I'm not doing nitpicky things, like commas, and I'm not going on it. But if I have written a new scene that comes after one and it's totally, affecting the previous one, then I will go back and tinker with that before I move on. And sort of, to me, it's more organic. I sort of kind of, whatever needs doing when I sit down to write, then I do.
I like that. So you already have pre-orders ready for Stirring Up Love.
Mhm.
Does that mean then, are you already working on the next book after that? How many books are planned in this series,
Uh,
or is that
just those two. Just, yeah, Alicia and her sister are in for that. Even though I love all of the characters in the town and everything, everyone's so great. I wish they could all get there
as
happily
in,
ever
like,
after.
I'm gonna need a book about Meg, and that's the best friend character, who, I know this is probably the wrong idea, but you kept on like, she's this perky cheerleader and just kind of like still there. I'm picturing, because we've got a baker, I'm picturing Allie as like Tiana, and then the blonde as her really obnoxious little friend from
From The Princess
the
and the
Frog
Frog.
Princess, because she's like, "Ee!" And I'm just going, we maybe tone her down a little bit, because she's
Yeah.
grown up now. She's not a child, but
Yeah.
I loved their
But I feel like
relationship.
it brings it out in you when sometimes when you're with your friends.
Yes,
It might be you're like totally a functional adult when you're out in the world, but then you
sometimes
get back with these childhood friends and it's just like,
full
oh,
aggression.
yes, exactly how we
Like,
used
we're
to be
back
at
in
during
high school.
sleepovers, and yeah.
But that was a sweet thing, because the relationship between the sisters is a little bit it's not quite the same level as the friendship is, and they're not as connected, at least not in the beginning, as Allie and Meg are. And then you also have this whole crew of, obviously, your main character, your love interest is a paleontologist, but he's got a whole crew too. So I'm like, do they all get love stories? Because I like to see all of them start having their love stories. And then there's just way more dinosaurs. But then you could have like a whole other series of like dino love. That's probably not what you're looking to do, but
I loved all of the grad students, and there's another professor that's on the team, and I just had so much fun writing those secondary characters. So I really liked having sort of the ensemble cast of, you had the people from Chicago and the people from the small town of Hawksburg. So that was just a fun dynamic for me to work with all of these different people.
Well, and characters. It made it feel well, but it made it also feel like a lived-in place. And sometimes you read books where it's like, okay, they're these main characters and there's nobody else around them the whole time. But you had this really alive place where I go, okay, so maybe there's not a lot to do there, but I'd still want to go there and try the fries, the good fries, not the frozen fries. I don't need to be eating the frozen fries. And the restaurant that Allie's grandparents run, I was just like, I admit I was celebrating my birthday a little late. Did I need to have barbecue? And am I blaming your book? Yes, I am. Okay, I've been trying to eat better, but did I have a giant cake? Yes. And did I go and have barbecue because I've been reading about yours? Yes, I did.
I feel like mission accomplished.
Exactly. Rarely do I read books with this much food in it, but not complaining. Just telling you, it influenced my choices of what I was going to eat from then on out. So,
well, hopefully it was good barbecue.
It was really. We tried a new place, and it was really good barbecue, but the kind of thing where I'm like, I haven't eaten this heavy food in so long, where you've got like the brontosaurus rib. That's how I do it. And it's basically a brontosaurus. So it was like, yeah. And it's like a dinosaur too. So
yeah,
my book's upside down. There we go. There's the dinosaur. I ate this rib like right here. It was pretty much there. Well, Chandra, I appreciate so much you coming and joining us here. I would love to read the next book and have you come on back and tell us about Stirring Up Love, where we see what Simone does. But for now, we are out of time. I would love for everyone to go out and check out Digging Up Love, the debut novel by Chandra Blumberg. Thank you, Chandra, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And everybody, we'd love for you to join us again. February 22nd, I have James Rollins joining us for The Starless Crown. So we're going back to, I know it's James Rollins, which you think action, adventure, science fiction. This is actually his fantasy novel. So this is part of a trilogy. Fantasy lovers, start on it now because it's fat. You're going to take some time to be doing this. I'm actually listening to it and I'm nowhere near done. So get on it before February 22nd. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.